Hey guys, this is Hemant from EduReka. Today in this session, we'll be talking about the AWS Certified Solutions Architect role. So we'll be talking about quite a few things today. So let's move on to the agenda to see what is our session about. So we'll start off with what is AWS, and then we'll move on to whether you should use AWS or learn AWS. So this is basically the theoretical versus the practical approach. And obviously the practical approach is better. So after that, we'll move on to the problem statement. We'll be discussing a problem statement, and we'll see how we can solve it using the AWS infrastructure. But before you can start using the AWS infrastructure, you should have an AWS account. So I'll teach you guys how you can create an AWS account, and then how you can use the AWS free tier so that you don't get charged when you're using AWS or when you're practicing on AWS. After that, we'll be discussing the solution to the problem statement that we discussed, or the architecture. And then I will teach you guys how you can deploy that architecture on AWS, which is our demo part. Our next section is about AWS certifications. So we'll be talking about all the roles which are there in AWS certifications, or which is offered by AWS. And then we'll move on to the role that you guys have applied for, which is the AWS Certified Solutions Architect role. We'll be discussing the topics which come in your exam when you apply for this role. And then we'll be talking about a structured training that you should follow, or the learning path towards becoming a solution architect. Let's go ahead and start off with today's session. So our first topic for today is what is AWS. So AWS is a cloud services platform. So it's a platform on which Amazon provides you with cloud services. Now these cloud services are in the form of compute. It's in the form of database. It can be in the form of networking, storage, database, etc. Right? So you use all these services or all these domains to create your application. And this is what AWS is all about, right? It's a cloud provider which gives you services which you can use to create your application. So let's move on to a next section which talks about whether we should use AWS first or whether we should learn it first. All right. So it's basically the practical approach versus the theoretical approach. So let's shed some light onto that. So let us discuss something very general first. So let's talk about gravity. So when Newton first discovered gravity, did he straight away jumped onto the formula and then he learned gravity, or did he first saw the apple falling from the tree and then he thought, okay, maybe this is gravity, so let's see what gravity is all about, right? So this is what is our approach for today. We'll be seeing how AWS functions, or will be our approach throughout our journey. We'll be seeing the practical first, and then we'll be talking about the theory, so that you know when you learn a service that, okay, this is how the service functions. All right, so this is the way I think, this is the way I will be teaching you guys. So from the left side is all the theoretical, that is the theory about these services. So rather than telling you guys about, okay, Elastic Beanstalk or SES or SNS, okay, Elastic Beanstalk is a platform or SES is an emailing service, rather than telling you all that, I will first explain you the practical part. Okay, this is how Elastic Beanstalk functions, this is what it does, and then we'll move on to the definition of what Elastic Beanstalk is. So that should give you more clarity onto what AWS is all about, right? So this is the approach that we'll be following when we'll be learning, or when we'll be moving ahead in the sessions that we'll be following henceforth. All right. So let's move on to the next section, wherein we'll be talking about the problem statement. We'll see the problem statement and see how we can architect or solve it using AWS. So we have to create and host a website on AWS which dynamically adds backgrounds. All right, so we'll have a website and there will be a slideshow of background images going in, and we'll have the functionality to upload an image, and that image should be added to the queue which is being played in the slideshow in the background, right? So this is what our website is all about. And this website should be highly available and should also auto scale according to traffic. The website is pretty simple, but this is to give you guys an insight of how you can think when you're from an architect's point of view. So if you have this website, forget about the coding part, right? So that coding is already done. This is the website. Now you have to see what all components would you require when you have to host this kind of website. So like I said, you have to think with an architect's mind and analyze what all components would you require when you would be hosting this website on some infrastructure, right? So let's see the components. So first of all, you would be needing a server, because obviously you have to host your website on something, right? So you'd be needing a server. And since you have to upload your images, those images should be hosted somewhere, right? It should be hosted on a file system. So you would be needing a file hosting service, and then you should also have the paths, as in your file is stored in a file system, right? So you should have that path stored somewhere. So for that, we'll be needing a database. So these are the three components that you would majorly need in hosting a website which has this kind of problem statement. So like I said, these are the three components that you'll be needing when you want your website to be created. So let's understand these services now, or these components now, in terms of AWS. So since now we understand these are the three components that we need, let's move on to see how these components can be related to AWS. So when we talk about a server, we'll actually be needing the Elastic Beanstalk service. When we talk about a file system, we'll be needing the service called S3, which is Simple Storage Service. It's an object-based file system. When we talk about database, we'll be talking about RDS in terms of AWS, which is a relational database service. Right? So let's understand these three services in detail now. So let's first talk about Elastic Beanstalk. So Elastic Beanstalk, it's a platform as a service which automatically configures your environment. Now, what it does is you basically upload your code, or you specify what environment you need. Say, suppose your website is in PHP, all right? So you don't have to configure your server, or you don't have to install your PHP files and configure your firewall so that it becomes a web server. No, you don't have to do that. With Elastic Beanstalk in place, you just have to specify the environment, which is PHP, that you'd be requiring, and then you launch it. And when the environment is ready, you have an option to upload your code. You don't have the access to the operating system. You don't have the access to the firewall. You don't have the access to anything. All you can do is upload your code, or obviously you can change the configuration as well, whether you want a specific virtual private cloud or some other. But the point is, you upload your code and that is it. You don't have to configure your server now. Everything will be done automatically. Now, this Elastic Beanstalk service is actually deployed on another AWS service, which is EC2. Now, EC2 is a server wherein you have the access to the operating system, you have the access to the firewall, you have access to everything. Now, Elastic Beanstalk is an advanced version of that EC2 service, which has been automated, right? So if you have a PHP application, right, and you want it to be deployed, you would obviously deploy it on Elastic Beanstalk rather than on EC2. So when would you need EC2 for website hosting? You would need EC2 for website hosting when you have an application or you have an environment which is not listed in Elastic Beanstalk. Right? So this is the difference between Elastic Beanstalk and EC2. So we're not talking about EC2, but I wanted you guys to know that Elastic Beanstalk is an automated version of EC2. So S3 is a file system. It's an object-oriented file system. So whatever file that you upload on S3 is treated as an object. Now, when we'll be uploading our images, these images will be stored over here on the S3 service. All right. So this is all about file system. There is nothing new to how you can store your images. But with S3, your files are treated as objects, but that doesn't change how your file is actually executed. It is the same. Our next service is RDS, which is a relational database service. So it is not a database, first of all, it's a database service. So it is a management service. So it basically manages your relational databases, right? Since there are around 5 databases under RDS, we'll be using MySQL. Now, how does it manage your database? It will do all the manual tasks that you used to do before automated database management servers. The first task could be maybe automatic rollbacking, right? Applying your security patches or updating your database engine. So all these tasks can be done automatically, and it can be done using RDS. So in RDS, we are using MySQL. So like I said, MySQL is a relational database. So we are using our relational database to store paths to our images. So we'll be using MySQL to store the paths to our images, which will be fetched by our website to show the images in the background. All right. So this is what RDS is all about. So let's move ahead. So let's start using AWS now. So we have learned about all the services. We now know what services we are going to use in our project. Let's start with AWS. But before that, you should have an account. You cannot proceed without an account. You should create an account in AWS first. and then you'll be able to access the services which are there in AWS. So let me teach you guys how to create an account. So first of all, you have to go to this link, which is aws.amazon.com. All right. After that, you'll be prompted with the screen, and you have to click on create an AWS account. Once you do that, you will reach this screen. So now over here, the step 1 is clicking on I am a new user. Step 2 is putting in your email address. And step 3 is then clicking on signing using a secure server. Now this page is used to log in as well. So for a new user, you have to select this option. Like I said, I am a new user, put in your email address. This password field will be disabled. You don't have to put anything, don't worry. And then click on sign in using a secure server. All right. In the next screen, you will be asked for your login credentials. So you have to enter your name, your email address, and then you'll be asked for the password, type it, confirm your password, and click on create account. On the next screen, you have to enter your address. So you'll be entering your address, you'll be putting in the captcha number, your phone number, and you'll be clicking on create account and continue after agreeing to all the terms and conditions. After that, you'll be prompted to enter your credit or debit card. So why would you need your credit or debit card? Because this is the way you get charged. So if you have a credit card attached to your AWS account, you will be automatically be debited. If you have a debit card attached to your account, you will be presented with a bill, and you can pay it using the same debit card that you're attaching here. All right, so you'll be prompted for the details of your debit card or your credit card. You can click in and then click on verify card and continue. So like I said, you'll be entering your card details, and then you'll be clicking on verify card and continue. In the next step, you'll be asked to verify a number. So you have to enter your number, clear the security check, and then you will be getting a call. All right, so you have to click on call me now. You'll get a call, and then you have to enter a code, enter the OTP. So it's kind of an OTP that you have to enter. It's a one-time password. You enter that, and then they'll be able to verify your phone number. And once you do that, the next step is about choosing your plan. So these are the plans. You have the basic, the developer, the business plan. So the business plan is basically used when you're using AWS for your prod environment, when you have your business website hosted on AWS, or maybe you have an application which is deployed on AWS. So when you have all of this, you would obviously be needing the support from AWS. So if you run into any problems, you want it to be immediately solved, right? So you'll have access to 24/7 support from AWS, but only under the business plan. If you choose the developer plan, you will again have the access to the support, but the response time would be more. Now, what is the difference between the developer plan and the business plan? It's basically the rates. So if you pay more, you'll have more access to the support, but if you pay less, you'll have a slower service from the support. But we will be choosing even the cheaper plan, which is the basic plan. So the basic plan is basically for personal use, for practicing, right? So we chose the basic plan, and since you guys have to practice, you can choose a basic plan. You can change a plan later by calling AWS, but for now, since we have to practice, we'll be choosing the basic plan. Once you choose your plan, the next screen is this, which confirms that you have been registered. So your registration has been completed. You can now sign in and come on to the AWS dashboard. All right, so let's understand the free tier. The free tier is basically divided between the non-expiring part and the introductory free tier. All right, so the non-expiring part of the free tier is basically that doesn't expire. It is there for your lifetime. So services like SES, Lambda, DynamoDB, and CloudWatch to an extent can be used every month for free. All right, and this validity for these services are there for a lifetime. So the introductory feature is basically valid for 1 year from the time you have registered. So since you just registered, right, considering you just registered, from today till the 1 year when it completes, you will have these many services, which is the RDS, EC2, S3, and CloudFront for free. Now, you cannot use these services as a whole for free. You have some limitations on them. Say like in EC2, you can only use 750 hours every month, and that too only for the T2.micro instance. When we talk about RDS, again, we have the db.t2.micro instance on which the free tier is applicable. So likewise, and when you talk about S3, in S3 you have 5 GB of free space. After 5 GB you'll be charged. Right, so this is the introductory free tier, and the services that we are using today are S3, RDS and EC2. So we are using Elastic Beanstalk, but like I told you, it's basically EC2 but automated EC2. All right. So if you have 750 hours of usage for free in EC2, you'll have 750 hours of usage for free on Elastic Beanstalk as well. When we talk about RDS, if you're choosing the db.t2.micro instance, you are in for a treat. You don't have to pay anything. Again, if you're using S3, the file system, if you are well below 5 GB of the space that you're using, you won't be charged. Okay, so it's my favorite part, the demo. So now we'll be actually seeing AWS in action. But before that, let's see what all we'll be doing in our demo today. So guys, this is the architecture for the problem that we discussed. So let's do a recap. We had to create a website that will have background images rolling, and we have to dynamically add more backgrounds from the same page, right? So this was our use case. Now I told you we need a server, we need a database, and we need a file hosting service. That server is Elastic Beanstalk for hosting a website. That file system is S3, where you'll be storing your images, and that database is RDS service, wherein you'll be storing your paths to the images that you are rolling on your background. All right. Now this is the architecture. Now a user, when he'll be accessing the website, is actually accessing Elastic Beanstalk. Now on Elastic Beanstalk, you have your code. Your code is interacting with the file system and your RDS service. So let's see what all steps we'll be doing when we'll be performing a demo. So first we'll be launching an Elastic Beanstalk environment. So once we have launched the Elastic Beanstalk environment, then we'll launch the MySQL instance in the RDS service. Then we'll be creating the required bucket in S3. So bucket is basically the folder wherein our images will be stored. So I have specified a bucket or I have specified a particular name in my code wherein it will be interacting for storing my images. All right, so we'll be putting in that name in S3, and then we'll be uploading our code to Elastic Beanstalk. So these are the steps that we're going to do. So let's go to step 1 first, which is launching an Elastic Beanstalk environment. So let us go to our AWS management console. So it is aws.amazon.com. When you reach this page, click on sign into the console. Now under the compute section, you will find Elastic Beanstalk. Now since we want to create a new application, we'll click on create new application. Now you have to give an application name. So let's give it the name as website background. All right, and then click on next. Now since ours is a web server, we'll be clicking on create a web server. Now like I told you, we'll be asked to select a platform. So our website is in PHP, so we'll be selecting the PHP platform. And since we want our website to be highly available and scalable, we have to have the auto scaling and load balancing enabled. What is auto scaling? What is load balancing? Don't worry, we'll be covering in our further modules. For now, let's just understand, for getting a website to be highly available and scalable, we have to select auto scaling and load balancing. All right. Once you have selected all of this, we'll click on next. Now it is asking me select a source for your application version. So this is where you'll be uploading your code, but we can do that later as well. So let it be at sample application as of now. Then this is the deployment preferences. This is related to AWS. Don't worry about anything. Just change this to 100 and click on next. Now this will be the URL to your website. All right, so it has a default one as of now. So let us use the default one and first check its availability. So yes, if it's green, it means that it is available. So my website is URL is available. So let me block this URL. So that URL is now registered to me. Now I want my Elastic Beanstalk to interact with the database, right? So since we wanted to interact with the database, which will be there in AWS as well, we have to create our application inside a VPC. All right. If you don't understand what a VPC is a virtual private cloud. A virtual private cloud is used when you want two AWS services to interact with each other. If you don't understand even now as well, don't worry. For the modules, we have a whole module on VPC. All right. So any doubts of yours will be clear over there. For now, just click on create this environment inside a VPC and click on next. Now we have to click on t2.micro, which is the free tier instance, right? If you select t2.micro, you will not be charged, but if you select some other instance, you will be charged. All right, don't blame me afterwards. I told you it should be t2.micro. Then everything else has to be kept on default. Don't touch anything. Click on next. The environment tags are not to be touched. Click on next. Now we'll be selecting the VPC. All right, so now remember guys, your VPC that you're selecting here and the VPC that will be associated with your RDS should be the same. All right, so remember the VPC that you're selecting. In my case, I'm selecting the VPC which is 82A7. So I remember this while launching my RDS service. Now the subnets, when it comes to the subnets, select all the subnets, and then the security group is 91191BB. Okay, click on next. No need to change anything over here. Click on next. Now you'll be prompted with the screen wherein you'll be reviewing all the information which you just entered. All right, so everything seems fine to me. Let's click on launch. Now this will take some time to deploy. All right, so until it is deploying, let us go back to our screen and see what is step 2. All right guys, so first our step 1 is complete, launching an Elastic Beanstalk environment. Step 2 is launch a MySQL instance in RDS. So let us do that. Let us come back to our management console and launch an RDS service. So this is RDS. Click on RDS. So we'll click on get started now. You'll be prompted with this screen. So RDS, like I told you guys, it is a management service. So it manages all these databases. You have Microsoft SQL Server, you have Oracle, you have PostgreSQL, you have MariaDB, you have MySQL, and like Atul pointed out, we have Amazon Aurora as well. All right. For our use case, we will be using MySQL. So as you can see, it is free tier eligible. We'll click on select. One more reason why we are using MySQL is because it is in free tier. So MySQL free tier, hence we're using it. Click on select. Then we have an option between selecting the prod environment and the test environment. Since it's a demo, choose the test environment and click on next step. Now over here you have to select the instance class. So the instance class is t2.micro. This is again free tier eligible. Select that. Don't select any other service or any other instance. Now multi-AZ deployment, click on no. This is basically used when you want replication to be done, but since it's our demo, we don't want that. Click on multi-AZ deployment as no. And then just everything, leave it at default. And let's come to the settings now. So what do you want your instance to be called? Let us name it as Edureka demo. All right. We want our username to be Edureka. Let us fit in the password. Okay, so everything is done. Let's click on the next step. Okay, so we are now prompted with the VPC. So like I told you guys, you have to select the same VPC as was in your Elastic Beanstalk. So our VPC over there was 82A7. We'll select this. All right, and then select the security group. In your case, it'll be only one. In my case, I have two deployed. So I'll select this one. Give the database name. So my database name is Edureka. Then the parameter groups. Okay, nothing to be changed here. Nothing to be changed here as well. Okay. Now I'm done with all the settings. So I click on launch DB instance. Okay, so it says my DB instance is being created. It will again take a while. So we'll click on view your DB instances. And as I can see, this is my instance which is being created. So I named it as Edureka demo. So it's showing me that. Now it says status is creating. So let's leave it for some while and go back to our slide and see what is step 3. So our step 3 is creating a bucket in S3. So it is actually the bucket that we want to be named it. We want it to be named a specific name because we have coded it in such a way. All right, so let's go back to S3. We'll go to the AWS Management Console. Go under storage. Yes, storage is here. Click on S3. All right, so this is our S3 Management Console. Now we have to create a bucket here which will be called Edureka demo. So let's do that. We'll right click here and click on create bucket. Now the bucket name should be Edureka-demo, and then we'll click on create. So a bucket has been successfully been created. So this is it, nothing else to be configured here. Let's go back to our slide. Let's see what is step 4. So our step 4 is to upload the code in Elastic Beanstalk. Let's go back. Let's check what is the status of our instances. So our Elastic Beanstalk is ready. Our RDS is still not ready, so let us give it time. And our S3 is ready. So let me show you guys the website that we'll be deploying. So guys, this is our website. Now this is the default image. If you don't have any image in your bucket, you will be prompted with this image. But as soon as you enter an image, say suppose I want tulips to be there, I click on open and click on upload image, and it will prompt me with this screen which says S3 upload complete, and my image will come in the background. It is a heavy image, hence it is taking time to load. So while it is loading, let me go back to my management console, and now whatever image I uploaded over here should be visible in this bucket, which is the Edureka demo. So let's check. So yes, there's a file. Let's click on this file and see if it's the file that we uploaded. Right. Meanwhile, my image is loaded over here. So as you can see, my tulips file has been uploaded in the background. But since it's only one image as of now, that is why we are not seeing a slideshow. I'll upload one more image, and then you can see the backgrounds change. I've set it to 3 seconds, so it'll change in every 3 seconds. All right, so our image is now complete. Okay, so this is the image that is there in S3 bucket, and this is the image that we uploaded, right? So my website is working as of now. So let's upload one more image. So let us upload penguins. Click on open, click on upload image. Okay, so it says S3 upload complete again. So my background has been updated, and as you can see, a slideshow is happening. Penguins is taking time to load because it's again heavy and my net is slow, but then as you can see, the website is working all fine. So meanwhile, while it is loading, I'll show you the bucket. We'll refresh the Edureka demo bucket, and you will be able to see that now there are 2 files over there. So as you can see, there are now 2 images over here, and these 2 images are actually the backgrounds which are being changed over here. So it's tulips and then it's penguins. So as and when you upload more images, you'll have more images in the slideshow. So this is my website, guys, so it is working fine. Now the task is to upload this website and deploy it in AWS. So as of now, my images are hosted in S3. Now the paths to these images are actually going into my localhost MySQL, which is over here. So I will show you. So my database name is Edureka, and my table name is image. So as you can see, there are 2 entries. So these 2 entries are actually the image names which have been uploaded in S3. So let us check. The first name is 14886311081. So it's 14886311081, right? This matches with this. Our next image is 148863090. 148863090. Right? So these 2 names match, and this is where the path is fetched from. The link is fixed. So basically what we are doing in our code is we are appending this name to the link of the file system, and hence the website is fetching the images in the background. Right, so this is how it is happening. Now the task is to first deploy or migrate this database to RDS, right? And then migrating this website to AWS. So let us do that. Okay, to connect to your RDS, you will be copying this endpoint. So you click on copy, and then you will go to your command prompt. And now you have to go to the bin directory of your MySQL installation, which is, for me, my installation directory is in WAM64. So I will be going over there. So it's cd c WAM64 -bin, right? then I'll cd MySQL. Alright, so my MySQL installation is over here. So now the command is mysql-h followed by the endpoint. So h is basically the host name, hyphen capital P, which is the port number. So you'll be deleting the port number from the endpoint that you have entered in your MySQL, right? Enter the endpoint, delete the port number, enter the port number separately, and before that you have to enter the tag as hyphen capital P, then hyphen U, which is the username, which is Edureka, and then hyphen P, which is the password. Click and enter. It'll be ask you for the enter password line, and then you will enter your password. Okay, so you have successfully connected to your MySQL instance. So let us see what all databases are there. So we'll see show databases. So as you can see, there's a database called Edureka. Now this is the database that I'll be using. So as of now, there are no tables in this database. Let me show you guys. So show tables, it says an empty set, right? So now I have to migrate my database from a local host to this RDS instance, right? So for now, let's do exit from RDS, and then we'll be creating a file for our database. So we'll be dumping a file. So the command is mysql dump -h localhost -u, which is the root, -p, hit enter. Alright, it's a spelling error. Let me do it again. -p, and then which database do you want to export? So it's Edureka. And what is the file that you want it to be exported to? So let us call it Edureka demo, right? Edureka-demo.sql. So .sql is the extension to the database file. Hit enter. It'll take around 2-3 seconds, and then your export will be completed. So my database in localhost, which was Edureka, has now been transferred to Edureka demo.sql. All right. So now let me migrate this file to RDS. So for that, you will go with the same command, which is mysql-h followed by the host name, which is the endpoint, -p3306, port number, -u Edureka username, -p, that is the password. Now what is the database name over there, which is Edureka. I want the file to be imported, so it's the less than sign, and then the file name that I want to export is Edureka demo-demo.sql. Hit enter. It'll ask you for the password. Enter the password and then hit enter. It'll take around 4-5 seconds for your file to be uploaded to the RDS servers. Once it's done, your database will be successfully migrated to the RDS infrastructure. All right. So since there are no errors, I got prompted with a blank line. Now my database is uploaded, so let's check. Let's connect to our RDS again. Enter password. It's Edureka123. Alright, I got into my RDS. Let's use the database, which is use Edureka. Let's see if there are any tables here. Show tables. So yes, I have a table called image. Let's check if there is data in this table. So yes, I have the 2 entries which were there in my MySQL localhost. So this is my localhost window, this is my RDS window. So in my localhost window, as you can see, there are 2 records. I migrated this database, and as you can see in my RDS, there are 2 records. So they are the same records. So my RDS is now ready with all the records which were there in my localhost MySQL. Alright, so let us exit RDS and now configure our code to interact with RDS. So let me open my code. So it's index file. So this is my index file. Now I have to change the host name here from localhost to this. So I'll open the code. Change the host name from localhost to my RDS service. Username is Edureka and the password is Edureka123. Right? Again, over here I'm using Alright, everything's set. My index file is ready. So let's check if my website on localhost is interacting with the database from RDS. So we'll refresh this. And if you can see the images in the background, that means the paths are being fetched from RDS. So it'll take a while and it executed successfully. So that means my RDS is working fine now. So this is basically the index file in test1. As you can see, it's test1/index.php, and this is test1. So basically your index file is fetched if you're directing it to the folder, but to be double sure, I'll enter the address, hit and refresh, and I get prompted with the same screen, and my images are changing. That means I'm getting the file's path is being fetched from RDS. All right. So the only thing left now is uploading this website on Elastic Beanstalk. So let's do that. So this is Elastic Beanstalk console. All right. We have to upload our code here. Now, how do you upload your code to Elastic Beanstalk? So it is like this. You go to the file, right? You zip everything. So before zipping, guys, since ours is Windows, so we have the path different, right? So there are some APIs which will be required in this code. So I'll be putting on the documentation, but when you're uploading your code to a different operating system, so since in our Elastic Beanstalk environment, the Amazon Linux is running, right? So you have a different paths to the files, or the different paths to the way your files will be accessed. Like for example, in our Windows, if I have to go to images 6, so I have a default image that it was going to, right? So it is in the folder, or it is in the root directory images/6.jpg. Now for going to the root directory in Linux, the way is like this. So it's var/app/current and slash. So this is the path to the root directory, and hence this should be used when you are uploading your code to the Linux environment. All right. Now let us enter the same address in our other files as well. So I require APIs, right? So my APIs are here. So this is the PHP code that I'm calling. So basically, when you have to connect to S3, you have to include some APIs. Don't worry, you don't have to worry about all these things. This all is covered in the documentation. So we'll be entering this address, saving it, and that is it. Nothing else is required. Save it, and now our code is ready to be uploaded. So now our index file has been updated. So we'll zip all these files and we'll name it something. So let's name it as edureka-demo, right? So this is the file that now you'll be uploading to your Elastic Beanstalk. So we will copy this file and store it to a location which is maybe easier to access. So we'll store it in C, right? So it's in C, Edureka demo. So we'll go to our AWS Management Console, go to Elastic Beanstalk dashboard, and then click on upload and deploy. Choose file, go to computer, go to see Edureka demo, click on open. Okay, so now my code can be deployed. So let's click on deploy. All right, so my Elastic Beanstalk says green now. So it is green, it is ready to be accessed. My code has been uploaded, which is a Edureka demo. So let me click on the URL and check if my website is working. So yes, my website is working and my backgrounds are changing as well. Awesome. So my website has now been successfully deployed on AWS Elastic Beanstalk as well. So let us check and upload an image and see if everything is working fine. So let's go to pictures and upload the lighthouse picture and click on open, click on upload image. So it says S3 upload complete. Let us see if it is reflected in my background as well. All right, it is still loading. So as you can see, I can see the lighthouse image in the background. That means my code is working fine. My images have now been uploaded to RDS. So according to this, there should be 3 records in my RDS, right? So let us check if I can see there are 3 images in my RDS. So it's CMD. Alright, I'm in my RDS. So let's use Edureka. Select star from image. So now we should have 3 records. So yes, we have 3 records in RDS. Let's check if my localhost dependency is gone. Obviously it should be gone, but let's be double sure. Hit enter. So it should have 2 records. So see, there are no records being updated in my localhost MySQL. So this database is not being used now. My RDS database is now being used. So my website has been successfully migrated from my localhost database to the RDS server, and from my localhost server, my website has now been deployed in the Elastic Beanstalk environment, right? So this was the demo, guys. We have done the demo. The code will be there in your LMS. You can play around with that code and come up with something even more interesting. Let's go back to today's session now. So we first deployed an Elastic Beanstalk environment. Then we launched the RDS instance. We created the bucket in S3, and then we upload the code to Elastic Beanstalk, and everything is working fine. All right. So this was the demo, guys. Let's move to the next section of today's session, which is AWS certifications. All right. Now, there are many kind of certifications offered by AWS, namely the AWS Certified Solutions Architect Associate, which is the role that you guys have applied for. Then we have the Certified Developer, we have the Certified SysOps Administrator, the Certified Solutions Architect Professional, which is the next level to the associate certifications. And then we have the Certified DevOps Engineer Professional certification as well. So our focus today is the AWS Certified Solutions Architect Associate. So let's keep our focus on that and move ahead. So our Association Solutions Architect Associate certification is all about architecture. It's about architecting solutions to problems. So basically your users will come up to you and say, we have this use case. So you have to come up with a solution in terms of AWS and serve them. All right. So let's see what all requirements are there when you have to crack the exam or when you want to become a solution architect. So guys, this is the exam blueprint. So our exam overview is like this. So you will have MCQs, and you will have 80 minutes to complete your exam, and your exam will be available in English, Japanese, Korean, and Portuguese, and your practice examination fee is $20, and your registration fee is $150. So if you have to practice your exam, you can do that. That practice exam will come from AWS and will be charged at $20 for you. And if you want to register for the exam and you want to give the main exam, that main exam is for $150. All right. Now these are the 4 domains that you have to prepare in. So first of all, you should be able to design highly scalable, cost efficient, fault tolerant, and scalable systems. So as a solution architect, you are expected to create highly available, cost efficient, fault tolerant, and scalable system. And that is the reason 60% of your exam will be based on this domain. The next domain is implementation and deployment. So basically what all you have architected, you have to implement it in terms of AWS services, and you have to deploy it on the AWS infrastructure. Like we just deployed a website on AWS infrastructure, right? So in the same way, you also have to deploy it. And so that section of the exam is 10%. Then we have the data security domain. So the data security domain is 20%. So all the security related features, the best practices, everything will come under this domain, and it covers 20% of your exam. Then comes the troubleshooting part. So you'll have problems related to troubleshooting. You'll be presented with some scenarios that you have to troubleshoot, and that will comprise of 10% of your exam, right? So that, guys, this is the blueprint, and this has been taken from the official AWS website, and this is the official blueprint that is there on the AWS website. All right. Now let's discuss these domains in detail. So the first domain, like I said, it's creating highly available, cost efficient, fault tolerant, and scalable systems. So it comprises of monitor and logging, how to design cloud services, planning and designing, best practices, developing to client specifications, scalability, trade-off decisions. So trade-off decisions would be to use MySQL instance on the same server as your website server or to use it separately, right? So these decisions you have to take. So if you are creating a website which has to be highly scalable, it is better to have the database separated with the website server, right? Then we have hybrid IT architectures, which includes connecting your private data center to the AWS infrastructure. So these architectures are called hybrid IT architecture. So how to create all of those and question on these, all of this will be asked in this domain, which is designing highly available, cost efficient, fault tolerant, and scalable systems. The next domain is implementation and deployment. So you'll be asked questions on configuring an AMI, operate and extend service management, configure IAM, launching service in AWS infrastructure. So implementation is, like I said, launching services. You should be able to launch services in AWS. So your questions will be around how you can launch services, or which part of your service or which part of your setting up the instance will comprise of the VPC, the storage part, everything else, right? So this will include your launch services in the AWS infrastructure. Then configuring services to support compliance requirements. So if there's an application and it has certain requirements, you have to configure your instance according to that, right? So you should be able to do that as well. Now you have to identify various techniques and methods that can be used to solve your use case using various services. Now these services would include, like over here we have pointed out, EC2, S3, Elastic Beanstalk, CloudFormation, Opsworks, VPC, and IAM. So these are all the important services that you should be focusing on when you are preparing for your exam, right? The next domain is the data security domain, which would include the CloudWatch logs. So it's a cloud monitoring tool. So when it monitors, it also generates logs. So, right. So when it comes to data security, you should be able to implement these logs because these come under data security. So basically, you have to follow all the best practices for security, right? Then you have AWS CloudTrail, which is nothing but a logging service, right? So all the API calls that you make to your services can be all logged, and these logs are actually created by AWS CloudTrail. Then you have to follow the shared responsibility model. You should also have the denial of service mitigation tactics. You should be aware of those. Then you should have encryption solutions. Trusted Advisor is a service by AWS, which is basically like a personal assistant to you in the AWS world. You should be familiar with VPC, IAM, and all these services, right? So this all is included in the data security module. Next up in the data security module, you should be also able to create disaster recovery techniques. So for that, you have services like Storage Gateway, you have Snowball, Route 53, and data recovery methods. Now, data recovery, disaster recovery could include recovery time objective, recovery point objective, and elastic block store. So you should be aware of all of these 3 points. Then comes troubleshooting. So troubleshooting is basically when you're prompted with problems, you should be able to solve them, all right? So how you can do them? You can do that when you have an in-depth knowledge of all these services, and that can only be gained when you're familiar with the hands-on part for that service, all right? So troubleshooting can include from if your EC2 or Elastic Beanstalk is not able to connect to your RDS, right? So what could be the problems? So basically here the problem could be that your VPC is not configured in a way so that these services can interact, or that your security group is not configured in a way that your services can interact. So all of this just comes not by reading the book, not by attending the sessions, but by actually practicing it, all right? So this is the troubleshooting part. Then, so this was the blueprint, guys. Then comes the required skills. So what all skills you require if you want to become a solutions architect? So basically, if you want to become a solutions architect, you should have one or more hands-on experience designing available and cost-efficient fault-tolerant systems on AWS. So don't worry, guys, this is the requirements that AWS expects from you. So AWS expects that you'd be able to learn AWS when you have hands-on experience. But since you are attending this training session, we'll be briefing you up quickly, and we'll be giving you live projects that you'll be doing, and it'll be equivalent to you having 1 or 2 years of experience on AWS, all right? Then comes in-depth knowledge of one high-level programming language. This again is not required, but then learning a programming language is not that tough. Your job would be to implement and deploy services. Your job would be to design highly scalable environments. So even if you are not familiar with programming languages, it is okay. Then you should be able to identify and define requirements for an AWS based application. So if there's an application which has come in from a user, so you should be able to identify it in terms of AWS services. Also, it is a plus point if you have experience with deploying hybrid systems. It is again okay if you don't have that. You can always learn it, all right? And we will be covering it on training sessions as well. And then the capability to provide best practices. So yes, like I said, I'm telling you guys again and again, I'm speaking it again and again. Best practices are very important because that is what distinguishes you from some other solution architect, all right? So if there are two solution architects, they have all passed the exam, they all know the services. But who is following the best practices is what differentiates you from the other guy, right? So you have to know the best practices and you have to follow the best practices if you want to become a better solution architect than others, all right? Let's talk about the job trends now. So does it make sense for you to become a solution architect, all right? So as you can see, from 2012 to 2017, now today, the job trends or the job has been growing, and this data has been actually taken from Indeed.com, right? So as you can see, the graph is going up and it will continue to grow up as in the near future as well, because the cloud industry is expanding. And as you know that AWS is the leader among the cloud providers. So the AWS market will grow as well. And if the AWS market grows, the requirement for your solution architect will grow as well. All right. So this graph will go up in the near future as well. So Mayank has a question. He's asking me what is IAM. Sorry, Mayank, I ignored your question. Maybe I can see it. So IAM basically is identification and authentication management. So using this service, you can manage the employees who are using your AWS account. So basically, if you are running a business, right, and you have hired some people who are working in AWS, and you don't want to give them the root access. If, for example, you want one employee to just maybe able to review the instances that are already launched. You don't want them to be able to edit the instances or delete instances or launch new instances. So basically, you are giving them rights, right? So you can do that using the IAM tool. So you can authenticate them and to a certain level of permissions, and they'd be limited to those permissions. They cannot exceed that, right? So this is what IAM is all about. Okay, guys. So thank you for attending today's session. See you later. See you in the next session, guys. Have a good day.